Hello, my name is Samar. I recently interviewed Nevin and Morrison, and here's a longer form interview um, with less edits, and it's more in chronological order and kind of talks about a lot more things that I didn't get to cover in the other NDP videos. Without further ado, enjoy. Okay, so you sent a letter to your local MLA, Nathan Newdorf. How do you know Nathan?
Just kind of known him from coaching his kids. I think I've coached three of his kids. I was an advisor for another one of his kids, and then just know the other one from just being around school. But yeah, just lots of years of coaching. I coached his one daughter up through mini rugby. Coached his other daughter some basketball, and used to work with her sometimes with some rugby stuff as well. And then um, coached his son in rugby, and then his son is also on my robotics team that went to Worlds in 2019, I think.
All right.
So yeah, so quite a while, and then his daughter's good friends with my daughter, so um, they also, I just kind of been sitting and watching sports, kind of in the same bleachers as him
Hmm.
for years as well too. So
Right. So in your email, what sort of issues did you kind of bring up with him?
I just I think that there's frustration and just the fact that um, the whole education ecosystem's been underfunded for probably 10 to 15 years. But it's just a different world than when I first got into teaching, right? I know coming out of school, I had student loans and I had a mortgage and I had all these things, car payments that I had to pay for, and I was able to do that. It was tough. You ask my wife, it was tough. It's a good thing she's really good with money, probably. And it was tough to kind of get through some of those things and pay some of those things. And now I'm, getting closer to the end of my career, and it's like I feel like I'm kind of almost living paycheck to paycheck, and I don't have, a mortgage payment anymore. I don't have student loans. I don't have these things. And then I look at, what new teachers especially making, and I'm like, oh, like you're making like maybe just barely more than a general laborer
Mhm.
in a profession where the attrition rates almost 50%. In those first 5 years, we lose a lot of teachers. And then I'm like, okay, well, why would you get into teaching now? Why would you become a teacher in this day and age? Because you're going to invest 4 to 6 years post-secondary education, and then you're going to enter into a profession where there's a 50% chance that you're going to quit because it's tough. First couple of years tough on any teacher. You do practicums, you do whatever, but you really, the rubber doesn't meet the road till you're actually on your own teaching, and it's a lot of work. um, and when I got in, I was like, I'm going to just put my head down. I'm going to work. I'm going to coach everything I can coach, and I didn't think about money a whole bunch. I'm going to be
Mhm.
honest. I just like put my head down. Money was tight, but we just keep rolling and go. And then and eventually, first 10 years you do get raises up the grid, and eventually you're in an okay spot. But then we eventually we get to a point where, from a financial standpoint, um, you top out in the grid. And then I was like, well, I'm gonna when we got into some of the strike stuff, I was like, well, I'm going to pull. I'm going to look at my numbers. I'm like, you know, I don't want social media is so full of misinformation, and so let me see what it looks like on my end, and so pulled my T4s from as far back as ADW. Our system would let me. I don't know, or 2016. I don't know why it would only let me go back that far. I've been teaching since 2002, but it would only let me go back to my T4s from 2016, and I pulled those, and then I pulled for as far forward as I could 2024. And in that 8 year time span, my wage, my gross income went up 3.9%. So I'm like, okay, that's something. And, so then I'm like, okay, well, what was inflation over that same period of time? And so, and that 8 year span went on, bank account and website. What was inflation? Put in those two times, check that yourself if you want. But it's like 2016, 2024, and it said inflation over that period of time 25.72% or something. Yeah, 25.72%. And so I'm like, okay, so my buying power over that period of time has dropped over 20%.
Yeah.
So, in that period of time, it's like something that used to cost $100 now costs $125, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting, 103 or four. Like, so my buying power has really been decreased over that period of time. And if I'm a new teacher, that's worse, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're not even at the top of the grid. I'm top of the grid. And so look at that. And then I'm like, okay, well, what's the average annual inflation over that period of time? Because I'm like, okay, how much is this going up each year? And punch that in, Bank of Canada, 2.9%. So our average annual inflation over that 8-year period is 2.9%. And then I look at, Daniel Smith's offer, and I'm like, okay, she's offered us 12% over 4 years. And I'm like, well, grade three math,
Mm-hmm.
12 divided by four, that's 3%.
Yeah.
So after not keeping up with inflation, probably for 10 to 15 years, I just couldn't pull those numbers. It's like, after not keeping up with inflation for that period of time, she's offered only to keep up with inflation for 4 years. And it's not going to fix anything. It's not going to get new teachers in the profession. Why would you want to do this? I
Mm-hmm.
don't like, why
Yeah.
would you commit 4 to 6 years of education if you got 50% chance quitting because it's tough?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, doesn't like I honestly don't know why you would do that. And then on top of that, that's probably I think of wages as number two. I honestly think of number two on our list of things that need to be fixed. But the number one thing is class caps. Like, every other province has something in place that says when your numbers get here, it's like you hire more teachers. And that's just the way it should be. And she won't even negotiate it. Her last deal was like, okay, here's a staggered way to do it. People put out there that, 2 billion or whatever. But the reality is our last proposal was like 500, 500, 500. Yet she always quotes, things from the future. Like, whenever she posts that 70,000 starting and that one night, it's like 2027. That's not now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then she wants to compare that with Manitoba's now and things like that, but not accounting for inflation moving forward. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so we need class caps. We do. And if you did math for dummies, sure. You say total amount of teachers, okay, total amount of students divided by total number of teachers. And sure, you get this 21 students for every teacher in the province, but it just doesn't reflect reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you think about um, small town, rural, northern schools, all of those school locations where they're not going to fill up, you know, they're not going to fill up classrooms, right? You're not going to have that 21 even in any of those scenarios
Mm-hmm.
when you maybe have a grad class of like 7 to 10 kids.
Yeah.
So you can't expect that. And you also can't expect to go back to like when my grandmas were teachers and you're teaching, in a country school and you're teaching, grades kindergarten to grade 12 all in the same room either.
Yeah.
Can't have that either. So you need to be teaching kids at grade level. And then you're like, well, okay, what are the logistics? Can you close some of these schools? Maybe. But then we already know that, and this is outside of our contract negotiations, they haven't built enough schools either.
Right. Yeah.
And we're not even negotiating that. That's not even that's not even anything to do with us. That's an
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure problem, right? They didn't build enough schools. So we don't have enough schools. So closing small schools probably is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
If you ship these kids from small kind of rural towns to bigger centers, well, then you're probably overcrowding their classrooms. And and then logistically, that just doesn't make sense for some
Yeah.
environments in rural areas, right? Like, we can't just close every small town school because they're not hitting this ratio, right? And so can't just use that 21 to 1. It doesn't make any sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at the same time, you look at all of our Alberta cities and, our class size are hitting high 30s.
Yeah.
Some class sizes in the low 40s.
Right. How many students do you have in your classrooms currently?
Yeah, I think my top class right now is around 36, and I have probably 3 of those classes. I have actually one anomaly class where the numbers are not there, and I'm like, oh, that class might not exist next year. That's just kind of the way it works in
Mm-hmm.
my world. I'm an option teacher, right? So if the numbers don't justify having a class, that class won't exist. And that's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
we work on that basis already,
Right. Yeah.
right? Where like if you don't get enough kids in your class, in my world, that class won't exist, right? Because you can't justify
Mm-hmm.
teachers if you don't have the kids. So I see that already. But yeah, and our English teachers started the year, first day of the year. It's like, I got 39 kids in my English class. Can you, you got desks? That was the first, before even the kids got there. How can we cram these kids in a room? For example, my outdoor ed class has got 36 kids, right? Well, I have to depend on 2 kids not showing up every day because I have 34 computers for our module work when we do module stuff
Right.
in the
Yeah.
class. So that's not a good model to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just not realistic, right? It's like there's a reason why we want class caps. It's like when we get there, well, we just hire another teacher, right? We can shuffle, sure, we can shuffle class around to try and get that as best we can and eliminate classes in need and whatever. But there's a reason we want class caps. There's a reason that every other province has it. Most provinces don't have to bargain for it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
why are we bargaining for common sense,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yeah, that's very interesting. Is there anything else? I'm trying to think. What you had said in your email. Um,
yeah, I don't know. I'm not an English teacher. I just kind of sat down and wrote stuff. And you know me, I personally don't love politics, to
yeah.
be honest. I'm very centralist. My vote flips different ways. I vote different nationally than I do provincially. Um, it's like I have friends that are far right. I got friends that are far left. Love them all. It's kind of it's it's what it is. I don't like that people are trying to make this a partisan issue. I really dislike that because
Mm-hmm.
it's really just comes down to math issue. And if you whatever math you want to put together, if you want the very simplest math that actually counts, it's like we're the lowest funded per student province in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And
And the contrasting part is that we used to be the highest funded, and then we just haven't increased the funding in like 10 to 15 years, right? So um, I think, yeah, I think that's, I'm also agree with you. Like, this shouldn't be a political issue. We should just fund the things that are important to us, put our money where our mouth is. And I think the underfunding of education really says a lot. Um, and yeah, I think we should be able to go back to a place where politics, like, it doesn't really matter which way you vote, because the outcome should be that you should just be able to live your life and like trust that your kids are getting a good education. And yeah, so what do you have anything?
yeah, I'm on board with that. Like the problem when it becomes partisan is that everyone's dug in their trenches on both sides, and it's just we all benefit from healthcare. We all benefit from paving the streets. We all benefit
Mm-hmm.
from education. That is, we need those things,
Yeah.
right? They just kind of, a lot of times we don't see them, we don't know them, we don't always think about those things on a day-to-day basis and take them
Mm-hmm.
for granted, right?
Yeah.
So um, we just need to kind of get back to a place where we're just funding these things in line. We're not asking for it to be the highest paid teachers in Canada. We're just fund us like on par with what everything else is. And there's weird things that come around, like people say, well, the ATA is must be taking all you guys' money. It's like, I think Schilling's going back to teaching next year.
Mm-hmm.
These
Yeah.
are these are teachers that we voted into these positions. They're not bankrolling and
Yeah.
riding around in limousines and like
Mm-hmm.
they're not making a ton of money. Like, I don't know where you think this, and then you hear weird misinformation like our party is like backing NDP and things like that. No, there'd be an outcry from us
Mm-hmm.
if they were like you know sponsoring political parties of any kind. It's just it's not happening. So get rid of the misinformation. That stuff it doesn't matter about that. I don't care who you vote for.
Mm-hmm.
We're an oil and gas, province. I understand we're an oil and gas province. We need to do things to promote that. But when you're the government, it doesn't mean that's your only job is to lobby for oil and gas. If they're the ones that voted you in, yeah, of course. It's not rocket science to think, oh, oil and gas workers lean to the right. Everyone has a work bias, right?
Yeah.
Public sector workers, yeah, they tend to lean left. These are not like enlightening statements, But just because a group of people might not vote for you very like as overwhelmingly as you want, well, it doesn't mean that you can just like disregard their whole line of work that benefits our whole population. It
Hmm.
just doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right. You have to run a government. You don't just have to lobby for oil and gas and lobby against the federal liberals. That's sure. If you think that that's going to help our economy, do that stuff.
Hmm.
But please take care of healthcare. Take care of public education. Pave our roads. Like do all the stuff that we need to happen that most of us just take for granted.
Yeah.
Or else pretty soon these systems are eroded, and then we have a poor quality of life.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
you got to balance that with fiscal responsibility, but there's so many checks and balances in education. It's like when the government gives our boards money, there's only a very small percentage that is allowed to be used for administrative costs. There's not all this like hidden waste that people aren't seeing,
Hmm.
right? And teachers are giving people, I promise. It's like we're trying to, we're volunteering all the time as well, but our work responsibilities have gone up. And if you take, okay, it used to be maybe an average of 25 kids, right, in a class, we'll say maybe that's on even the high end. And now it's 35. Well, if you just like put that in a private sector scenario, just imagine if you're like, someone did a really good metaphor of this. Like, if I was a mechanic and on average, I could fix 2.5 cars a day. And then my boss came to me and said, from now on, you need to fix 3.5 cars a day.
Yeah.
Same facility, no bigger facility. And when you used to just work on Fords and Chevys,
Hmm.
now you have to work on every make and model of cars. You're not going to be paid any overtime, and your wage isn't going to increase.
Hmm. Yeah.
No one in the private sector would agree to that,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? No one would agree to that. But that metaphor is very identical to the scenario we're in now.
Hmm.
And when they stopped tracking class size in 2019, it's like, what did you think was going to happen? You
Hmm.
created a problem that was going to grow and grow. It's not like they didn't know our population was growing. And they like to, blame immigration, blame all this. Immigrants pay taxes too, right? They get maybe a few breaks when they first get to the country because they're coming here for a reason,
Hmm.
right? But at the same time, watch Danielle Smith's crown speech. She says she wants to double the population of Alberta. Did she think that was just going to be all skilled laborers with no kids?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, the reality is, you want to bring people in, you're going to get kids.
Hmm.
And it's just like, you you say these things, but you have to prepare education for that too.
Hmm.
Um, it's like it's just disappointing. We see it in politics all the time. You say one thing here and then you change your mind later. Like you watch even Daniel Smith's stuff, 6 years ago before she was the premier, and she talks about class sizes, complexities, all this kind of stuff on her like podcast, and you're like, now
What
you
happened
won't
to that?
address it. Now it doesn't matter
Hmm.
because we're not paying your bills behind the scenes,
Hmm.
and so you can't just cater to who's paying your campaign funds. It's just sad. It's kind of a
Yeah.
sad situation, right?
You also mentioned um, like the mechanic analogy, where you're used to like fixing 2.5 cars. What also goes into that, and a lot of people don't see, is that all of the time you spent off the clock actually like fixing the cars. So like in your email, you had mentioned like you have this many like extracurricular hours. How much time do you spend at school outside of like the school day?
Um, well, sometimes it's embarrassing because I usually, I I'm definitely at the top end of that in terms of like probably for 23 years teaching, it's somewhere between 500 and 900 hours each year. And I could, if I had access to my documents, probably almost every year is more in that 700 to 800 range. That's a lot of free time. Now, do I love coaching rugby? Do I love coaching basketball? Do I love coaching archery? Do I love coaching or mentoring for robotics? All those kind of things. Of course, I love those kind of things.
Right.
But at the same time, my time has value too.
Mm-hmm.
It has value, and I do all that for free. You get 2.5 days in lieu, and when my admin comes to me, they're like, yeah, we know you met the max, Nevin, but I submit my stuff anyways. But that's just what it is. So that's like a lot of actually weeks, if you did the math, of free time that I've volunteered and continue to volunteer and have done in the past. But um, like I said, I love that stuff. It's good, but it takes from me too. It takes from my family. Like I said in the letter, like there is absolutely zero expectation that I'm ever home for supper in the school year, and that my family knows that. But and other people can't do the same number of co-curricular hours as me, but that's probably because they don't have my pretty awesome wife. Like I got 4 kids of my own, but I honestly, other people couldn't do that. She runs a day home. She takes care of a lot of the home stuff
Yeah.
through that, and she values my coaching, so she allows me to do all that extra.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, we're gonna a real good chance we're just gonna be legislated back to work because it doesn't seem like there's any will to actually negotiate a deal that I think was pretty fair that was put on the table. And if you don't think it's fair, where's the counter? That's like it hasn't even happened.
Right.
Mediator, we don't want your mediator because your mediator gives crap in the spring, and that's hand selected by you. And you're taking classroom cap sizes off the top. We can't do the mediator again. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like so that's not even couldn't be on the table. So don't try to pretend it was. So, but those co-curricular hours, like I said, that's kind of volunteer stuff. Well, when we're legislated back, what's my last chip? Like if I'm sitting at the poker table and I'm like, what do I have left? Freaking, it'll break my heart. I started my archery club and my, robotics club. We had like one meeting.
Yeah.
We're starting up the start of October at one meeting each. And it's like, we're just ready to get rolling. But my last chip on the table that I have is co-curricular.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we can even be, mandated to work to rule, but we can personally choose to. Can't tell me I have to do volunteer work where I'm not paid, not
Yeah.
in my contract. Sure, my, planning's in my contract, my assessments in my contract, every ELL, ISP, all these extra things that I have to do as a teacher are in my contract. That's part of being salary, but co-curricular is not. At the end of the day, you're my robotics club when you were in high school.
Yeah.
You know that I care about that stuff. You know I care about kids. But I'm going to be down to that last chip, that last poker chip that I got left is co-curricular.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you force me back to work.
Mm-hmm.
The only chip I can put on the table now is I got to take away co-curricular. That's it. It's like, I don't have anything left.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, maybe I go, coach rugby in the community. I do that already anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe I go, go coach archery in the community, get paid to coach. Never been paid to coach ever in my life to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the next route. Maybe the next route is go get, my reffing certification for rugby and just go ref. I'm still giving back,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'll get paid for it.
Exactly.
It's like, I love doing these things that I've been doing for free for years, but my time has value.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to recognize that. And if you make me use my last poker chip, I will. It's
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, and it's like it's frustrating seeing like the messaging come from Danielle Smith, where she's like, "Oh, the ATA refuses to negotiate," where like the last offer they presented got voted down. I think it was like 89%. Um, and well, like negotiation is like a two-way table, right? So like if you're forcing the teachers back to work, well, what else do they have to do, right? And I think just the part that goes unspoken and unrecognized is all of the work that so many teachers put in that are unpaid, and like that's it's like I can attest to that. Like I was in robotics, and like it was several hours every single night that you were there, and like you helped coach that. And so yeah, I think teachers definitely deserve the the wage increases they're asking for, but it's like it's not just about that, right? We talked about class
No.
caps, and we also what we haven't talked about yet is like complexity. um, it's not just the fact that you have 36 kids in a classroom, but it's the fact that 36 kids also all learn differently. And with more kids, you spend less time on each kid. And so the quality of the education for that one specific child goes down. Um, and people who don't teach or have never worked with kids don't really get to understand how like special and unique each kid is. Um, so yeah, do you have any like thoughts about like
Yeah,
complexities
like,
and
and
things too?
I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't think that I have dealt with the complexities other teachers have, but I've seen small glimpses. I had an outdoor ed class last year where I had 6 different first languages, same class. Wore a little mic like this every day. I'm a computer science teacher, so I was like, well, I'm going to use technology to make this happen. And I wore a little mic each day. My ELL learners each day had like a headset on, and as I talked, it would live translate in their language on the computers. It didn't support every single language, but it supported most. But it's just an example. Like, that was more than normal for me, was having 6 different first languages in the same class. But I think if you went to Calgary and Edmonton, I think that's more like commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
You have special needs students in that class where I had those 6 different first languages. I had a special needs student. That is the only reason that I had an extra support staff at that time. And so it's just a different working environment. And like, people just keep pointing to, although they're offering 3,000 teachers and they're offering, this many EAs, but you need actual teachers.
Yeah.
You have EAs are great, love EAs, important piece of the picture as well. But 3,000 teachers isn't even keeping up to
Mm-hmm.
projections.
Right.
So it's not even keeping up with population projections. It's just, we've been underfunded for a long period of time. And there's just like, it's like you keep blowing air into a balloon, and it's going to keep taking air, and then eventually, it bursts. That's where it's at. Or you don't pay the power bill for a couple months, you're going to get warnings. You're going to get several messages saying, why haven't you paid this? But eventually someone cuts off the power. I've been teaching for 23 years and I haven't been on strike yet.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I have paid union dues for 23 years. So this is like that. There's a reason I pay. It's to protect my rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like, I have 7 years left. I don't know if I'll ever make up the financial losses from the strike, but it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is not about me. It's about our educational ecosystem is underfunded and it needs to be restored. Because otherwise, like I said before, why the heck would you want to get in this profession, first of all? And then I got 4 kids, man. 3 of my kids are adults already. I hope to be a grandpa here soon. My kids see that, but not too soon. But I want there to be a good educational system when my kids go to school, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to look like the U.S. My wife's best friend, she's an architect, worked as an architect in New York. She's in a completely, different tax bracket than us. Okay. She's moved to Seattle now. She pays $40,000 a year
wow.
for private education for her kindergarten kid.
That's crazy.
We don't want that system. And she says to us, the reason I do that is because public education sucks in the US.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks, and everyone knows it sucks. And it's underfunded, worse than us in lots of cases, although there's some states that fund more than Alberta. But it's like, it sucks. And so she's willing to pay $40,000 a year for a kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's in American or Canadian dollars. If that's American dollars, just imagine that.
Right. Yeah.
And do you want tiered? You want to be able, you want to have to, that's the top end because she's got, but her husband's out of work. They're struggling with that right now. Okay. You want that, and then somewhere in between, and then everyone else.
Yeah.
You want nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The reason why co-curricular is so tough for me to say, take that away. Because then, now, if I'm going in the community, guess who I get? I just get kids that are rich. I get kids that can pay. Community sports are more expensive than school sports. I'm not saying we're zero. When I was a kid, it was like kind of zero to play other than travel. But school sports cost money now too. Every school varies, but it's still not the community, right? Go play, rep volleyball. See how that looks. Go play hockey. That's already, those are elitists. You can't you don't have money, you can't play those in the community. That's just a reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I just take my free time and I move to, I'm paid to coach now in the community model. What are those kids that can't afford it? What are they? I grew up in low rental housing with a single mom.
Yeah.
When it came to grade 7, mom said to me, I'd rather you play school sports. Can't afford, you know, can't afford hockey anymore. Our rent is based on, how much she made, right? We're living in low rental housing. It's like, so hockey came off the table for me at that point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Thankfully, I love school sports. If you
Yeah.
know that I love school sports,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sad if that's where we go. It's
Mm-hmm.
why I like sport. I think school sports are an important part of our community, builds that kind of community. But what else do I have? Like, what else do I have if we're forced back to work?
Yeah.
What do I have? What's my last chip? And that's it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely a difficult situation for teachers to be in. Um, yeah, do you have anything else to sort of add or?
Oh, I don't know. It's good.
Yeah.
You're nicer than me than people on social media.
Yes, social media is definitely a different beast.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay.